Hi, this is Stephanie Bourbon, and welcome back to Story Concierge. Today we are going to be talking about the ending. The ending is the most important part of a story. I know a lot of people think it's the beginning, but really it's the ending, because the ending is what gives us the theme of the story and gives meaning to the story. Please watch the entire video, because I really want you to come out of this and know how to write an amazing ending to your story. Again, you don't have to take notes. Just like last week, I'm going to put a PDF in the description for you, and let's get started. Hi, storytellers. Today we are talking about the end of your story. I feel strongly about endings. There are so many times when I've either read a book or gone to a movie or listened to a book on Audible or even read a short story, watched even a television series. Like, if there is a bad ending, I'm done. Like, it has destroyed all those years that I have put into it when they crap it out with a bad ending. And maybe I'm really harsh. I don't go on social media and complain about it like I know a lot of you did about Game of Thrones. To be honest, I kind of stopped watching it when it went off book, so I'm not going to comment about that, but I did watch the end of it, and I have mixed feelings about that. But so that's the point, is that was a very, very passionate discussion that went all over social media. I know it's been on YouTube, it's been everywhere. People have blogged about it. So people do feel strongly about endings. So here's the first thing that I'm going to say about your ending. Your ending is where everything in the story comes to an end, but no, it gives the story meaning. It's what ties everything together. It's what the theme is. So you come out of it and you're like, oh, okay, like I learned something or I felt something. There are so many great examples of amazing endings to stories. One that affected me when I was actually quite young was The Great Gatsby. When I read that book, I didn't know what that book was about. I thought it was just about partying in the roaring 20s and all these rich people. And, you know, I was a kid, so I wasn't really paying that much attention. I just wanted to get through it and my report and be done. But the ending of that book, it changed the way that I really looked at literature, because if you know the story of The Great Gatsby, you know what happens at the end, and it is powerful. And, you know, I took my husband to see the Leonardo DiCaprio version when it came out about 7 years ago, and the same thing. He didn't know the story. He didn't know what happened, and he walked out of that, and he was emotionally changed. If it was not for the way that that story ends, that whole story would have no meaning. It's real. So go get The Great Gatsby. First of all, everybody who writes stories or likes stories or wants anything to do with stories, I personally believe should read that book, have copies of it, because it's so strong. There are many other ones. The Fault in Our Stars, it's a YA novel. And I don't know if you know this, but there was a completely different ending that was, and I'm sorry, John Green, but it was ridiculous. It was so ridiculous and far-fetched. So I'm not sure if it was the editor that helped that ending come to what it was, but it actually is a really strong ending, and it's poignant. And the way that it originally went didn't make a lot of sense. Now, it's really hard to come up with a good ending. I have a middle grade novel I've been working on for years, off and on. I keep putting it aside, and one of the reasons is because I cannot figure out the ending. Because the ending has to have a few things that I'm going to tell you about in a minute, but one of them that's so important is the hero has to be the hero of their own story. They can get help from friends, but it can't be a thing where somebody swoops in and saves the day for that character, because that's not satisfying to us as readers. I mean, how many times in your own life when you accomplish something or do something yourself, you feel really good about it? Like, you know, when you first moved out and got your own apartment, sure, it would be great if your parents just paid for that apartment and you didn't have to worry about rent, but how good did it feel that you got your own job and paid for your own rent? It's the same thing with the stories. We want our characters to be the hero of their own story, and we want our characters to get out of their problems and grow as characters. It's very, very important. So that's the first thing, is that the character must be the catalyst for his own ending. The next thing is that your character has to have changed in some way. Either they realize something about themselves, or they have changed their behavior to become a new and better version of themselves. In a lot of middle grade and YA books, this is a common theme because a lot of them are coming of age books, obviously, because that's when people are growing up and stuff. So the characters very often do change because they're learning about the world through the stuff that's happening in that story. It's really, really important that we see that change throughout the story, but definitely at the end of the book, if you open, okay, because I already mentioned it, if you open The Fault in Our Stars and you look at who Hazel Grace was in the first chapter to who she was at the end, she is a different person. She's accepted things that are going to happen to her and her family in a different way. She has learned to love. She has learned to enjoy life a bit more than she did before, and you will see that if you just read those chapters, like the first one and the last one, which is actually a really good exercise for you, is to take some of your favorite books, the ones that you know really, really well, and read the first chapter and the last chapter and see what happens and see how the characters grow. Another thing that the ending of your story, obviously, I mean, it seems obvious, but it has to have is the battle or the resolution or whatever with the antagonist or the antagonizing force. It's very, very important that at the end of your story, this is how a story is a story, that comes to play. So, for example, if this is a story about a character who doesn't get along with his father and it's causing all sorts of problems, and it's sort of a quiet story, but the biggest thing is about the father, there needs to be a scene at the end of that book where those two come to an understanding. Either the father finally accepts who the son is, or the son accepts and understands why the father is doing what they're doing. If it's a story like Harry Potter, where the main character is literally fighting monsters, then it's a little bit more straightforward. Your main character needs to fight the monster at the end of the story. So, you know, there's lots of different ways to do this. Again, I tell you to watch your favorite movies, you read your favorite books. But one of the things that I noticed when I was reading for the studios and even critiquing people's books is that the ending it doesn't end. The story just continues and then it just stops because it's almost like the writer didn't know what to do. And so many newer movies kind of have that thing where it doesn't really end. We need a resolution. The strongest stories in the world have a resolution. This week, I'm going to give you a little bit of homework. What I want you to do with your current work in progress, and I don't care if it's a TV show, if it's a spec of his existing show, or if it's a pilot, or if you're writing a new screenplay, if it's a short story or a novel, it does not matter. If you're writing a story, the exercise that I'm going to give you is to write out 10 different ways that this could end, 10 different outcomes. You don't need to write all the dialogue and all the details, but just literally write out 10 different ways that this could end. And you know what, if you want, write out 20, write out 50, and run them by, if you have critique partners or if you're in a writing class or even on social media, you could say like, what do you think if these 3 things happen? Because that way you can really see. I think so many times us as writers, we just, by the time we're at the end, especially of a novel, we're so done that we just want to end it. And I think that can be a problem. A couple of my novels that actually are out in the, well, they're not out in the world anymore, but they were out. Some of the feedback I got was that it wrapped up too easily or that it was too convenient. And, you know, sometimes that's okay, but most of the time it's not. I mean, you really, really want your ending to be strong. I think stronger than the beginning. The beginning tells us what the story about, and the ending tells us why we read that story. And also, there's this old saying, and I don't know it exactly, but the gist of it is the beginning is what draws the readers in, and the ending is what keeps them coming back for more. If you have a good ending and it's satisfying, people are going to come back and buy more of your books, or they're going to go to more of your movies, or they're going to watch more of your television shows or your short stories. They're going to be excited to hear from you. So I really, really want you to work on those endings. And like I said, just do exercise and just, you know, even if it's just like an outline, just one sentence, write different versions of it. It will really help you. So I hope this is helpful. Please post in the discussion below in the comments some of your favorite endings to movies or books. Let's get a discussion about it because I think it's really important and we can all help each other. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you next week. Bye.